Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. And this week, I'm so excited to have my guest on because she's doing things a little bit differently, actually a lot differently from most of the guests that you've heard on the podcast to date, maybe except one or two other people. No, one other person. My guest this week is Jade, and she runs the Etsy shop Paper Sphinx, and she sells handmade digital clip art and graphic resources. And you'll find out why I'm so excited to talk with her. But Jade, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jama.
You're so welcome. Now, before we start, and I'll explain why I'm excited about this particular conversation, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born on an Army base in North Carolina, Fort Bragg, but we moved to Michigan soon after that. I've been an artist for about as long as I can remember. I grew up drawing every day. I ended up going to school for illustration in Savannah, Georgia. And after graduating, I worked for a few years doing freelance illustration for product design in Miami. And then I moved to Atlanta and started becoming an illustrator for children's apparel, as well as my Etsy shop.
Wow. So you're a real Southern belle.
I am. I mean, I guess I am now. That would sound weird. When I was growing up, I was super Midwestern because I grew up in Michigan. But after high school, I left and I've never really been back to the Midwest. So I do kind of identify more with the Southern life now.
Yeah. There's something so, I don't know, in my head. So I don't know what the word is, but there's something intriguing about the South to me. Like, you know, it's a whole different demeanor from like California, which, you know, is really another country, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm always intrigued by the South and people, you know, from the South, and just that whole, it just seems like a very soft environment. I don't know if that explains what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, they're super friendly here and super polite. I was really kind of confused when I first moved here. Whenever you get in an elevator in the South, none of the men will enter until all, you know, the ladies have gone in. They're just super gentlemanly and polite. And I remember that freaking me out at first, but now I'm so used to just the Southern hospitality and the Southern politeness. It's
now you're used to the good life.
Yeah.
So Jade, how would you describe yourself? Do you consider yourself a maker, an artist, or a graphic designer, or something else?
Definitely an artist, but I think more specifically an illustrator, which basically the difference would just be an artist creates, but an illustrator kind of creates to solve a problem. So I love making art that serves a purpose and making art commercially. That's just where my love lies. And I like to make art that I know is going to be used in a product, on a sticker, like show up in a store. That's really where I'm passionate about. So definitely an illustrator.
Okay. Now, with over 5,000 sales on Etsy, you've been on Etsy since 2015. How did you first discover the platform? And when you did you know right away? Like, did you come on as a seller, or were you a buyer first and then decided you wanted to start something on the side? What was the story?
So I actually first discovered Etsy on a different account in 2008. So quite a while ago.
Oh, yeah.
I think, I was in college and I wanted to sell on Etsy. I don't know how I exactly came across it. I think I was probably looking for ways to sell prints. And then I, came across people selling prints on Etsy. And at that point, I did start a shop and I wanted to sell my prints. It didn't go super well. I think I really just didn't enjoy the process of packing and shipping and printing out everything. I more liked the creating and the kind of business development marketing aspect of it. So that shop wasn't too long lived, but it has stuck in my brain since then while I've been thinking of, other ways I could use Etsy. And that's when I finally in 2015 started my shop just selling digital items.
And I like that because you had a shop before and you didn't experience success, but you came back and you regrouped. Do you think when you came back the second time, you were wiser for having gone through that first experience, just trying it out and figuring out what you did and didn't want to do on Etsy?
Definitely. I learned a lot about what I enjoy about selling, what I enjoy about creating, and also just I have a full-time job now, and not having the time to really put as much time into it as I did before. I knew that took a lot of time, what I was doing before. So it helped me realize that I need to kind of change the way I wanted to sell this time around.
Okay. So this time around, you sell all digital products. Your shop is exclusively digital. So that's why I'm really excited to talk to you, because I think that captures the essence of passive income. Now, passive income being not that you never have to do anything, because you create the products that you're selling, but then the products themselves keep working for you over and over again. So,
Yeah.
so specifically, what do you sell? I know what you sell, but can you explain to someone who's listening?
Sure. So I sell clip art and graphic resources, all hand painted. So things like a pack of watercolor, beach party elements. Like I might have a watercolor beach towel, a flamingo, a beach ball, a seagull, like that kind of thing that someone could buy. And I sell to both individuals and small businesses. So an individual might buy that pack and like put together an invitation for a summer beach party that they're going to send to their friends, or an Etsy seller might buy my pack and use it to make a sticker set that they're going to go ahead and sell in their shop. So I make elements that people can take and use all sorts of ways to do their own DIY projects or invites or market their own shops.
So, and this part is really intriguing for me because so you create artwork that people can then incorporate into their own pieces. Is there a licensing component to this? Like, do you give or sell a license for people to use your products to then be able to make money of their own? Or when you sell them, are they for private use where someone can use it to make like home decor, but they're not going to sell it?
So yeah, the licensing issue was one of the first things I had to think about when I made my shop, because, as an illustrator, I didn't want to provide art for a low price that people could just use, or like Walmart could come and buy and sell, for millions of products without providing payment or using a license. So I did come up with a licensing system where when the customer buys the product, it comes with a personal license, which means they can use it for any of their personal products. They could make, wall art with it. They could make stationery or party decor for their child's birthday party. But if they wanted to use it commercially, they buy my commercial license, which is a separate item in the shop that they can purchase. And that gives them the rights to use the item a certain number of times. I mostly cater it to small sellers again. So it's like an 1,000 item usage license.
Yeah.
And that way they can use them to create products to sell.
And Jade, do you have a way of policing if someone buys one of your graphic packs, but then uses it for commercial purposes without buying the commercial license? Do you have a way to find out if that's happening?
So it's tricky because I am one person, so I can't really see everything. I do find that the majority of Etsy sellers have been really good about following my license. They often message me and ask to make sure, I want to use it this way. Is that okay with the license, or do I need a commercial license? And I find that really, really great. Yeah. I do kind of search through Etsy every once in a while, maybe every month or so, for keywords that might include my clip art. And I kind of take a look and see who's using my clip art. And then I can check and see through my sold order history if they have purchased a commercial license. So I do check. I am sure that I can't see everything that's out there.
Yeah.
But, I think people knowing that I am out there checking kind of helps keep everything in line.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Good for you. So how much effort does it take? Because I know when we think, passive income, all of us think, oh, just, it's going to be easy and then the money will start rolling in. But there's work that goes behind it. So you've developed this system. How much effort does it take for you? Like, how much time do you spend creating new packs? And how much time goes between when you add new packs to your shop or new designs to your shop and not, because I know you're working full time as well.
Yeah. So it is definitely a lot of work to start. Back when I started the shop, it was a lot more work because I didn't have any packs in there. So my focus was really to create and to get the shop kind of stocked up. So back when I started during our down season. At my job in the children's apparel industry, we have kind of busy seasons and down seasons. So I try to do a lot of my work in the down season, and it can take, I'd say, to make one new pack, I usually spend a day on it. It could take about 5 to 8 hours to make a new pack.
Okay.
But now that I have about 100 packs in the shop, it's at the point where it's pretty much on autopilot. So I tend to wake up and I might have a few convos in the morning that I respond to. At work, I focus on work, but at lunchtime, I might check and see if I have any more customer service needs or convos that I should reply to. And when I get home, I check again for any conversations, and I might sketch while my fiance and I are watching TV. But really, while the shop's just running, I probably only spend maybe a half hour or so a day just looking at my convos. Other than that, I don't need to put any work into it unless I want to make a new shop, which I'll often do on the weekend. Often on Sunday, I'll just try to make a new pack start to finish and get it up in the shop.
Okay.
And the good thing is that I don't have to do that every weekend. Now that the store is stocked, I can just do it when I have the time. So when we're in busy season, I do a lot less work than that. When we're in the down season, I might make a pack or two every weekend.
Wow. That just sounds like the perfect outlet, and you're making money from it. I noticed also that in your listings, you ask that credit be given. And so is that part of what you look for every once in a while, just to make sure that people who have purchased your packs are giving credit? And if you find someone violating what you've asked them to do, how do you go about rectifying that situation?
Yeah, so my personal license, just to get a bit more detailed about what it is, it does allow very small commercial use, like 100 sales, more just like a test period to see if the person wants to keep selling it. And when they do use it for very small commercial purposes, they are required to give credit. And I have kind of a little blurb as to how they can provide me credit. And I haven't found many people ignoring that, but I did recently have a shop that she wasn't ignoring it, but she had a very large store with a ton of items in it, and she just couldn't keep up with, managing all her listings. So I think she just forgot to include it in a couple places.
Okay.
And all I did was reach out to her and say, hey, I know your shop looks awesome. It looks like you're really busy with it, but I noticed that you didn't have credit provided here. Do you think you could update that? And she immediately went and updated it. So, so far I haven't had really any issue with it besides, people that just made an honest mistake.
Yeah.
Now, if I do, as the shop grows, I won't be able to catch all of it. So I'm still kind of considering how I might deal with things like that in the future. But for now, it's been pretty fine.
Okay. Oh, good. So hopefully you're on your way to becoming like a Disney who, Disney could go buck wild on Etsy with all the.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, in order to do something similar, because I know this idea is very appealing to someone who's listening, who has a skill and is now thinking about how they can use that skill to create high quality products and then also sell them using a passive income model, or somewhat passive. It's not 100% passive. And I just want to keep stressing that, because I know there's this huge misconception out there when people hear the term passive income that they don't need to do anything. You always have to do something.
Yeah, you have to maintain it for sure.
Yes. And then there's the maintenance. So what does one need, or does a person need to be versatile with, say, Adobe Suite in order to do something similar? Or are there other types of digital products that one can sell that perhaps they don't need to be an Adobe expert?
Yeah, so there's all sorts of things you can sell digitally. Like for me, it does require a skill in illustration, which, I went to school for, so I have that skill.
Yeah.
But I've seen people selling a lot of different things digitally. I know a lot of people who love to knit or who love to sew can sell their clothing patterns on Etsy. And I think you could really draw out a pattern and scan it in and just kind of sell it like that. So I don't think you would have to be a Photoshop wizard for that. I know people sell printable party supplies. People sell fonts. People sell a big thing people do is they take stock photography, like of tabletops or of like clean backdrops that people can then go and place their products into and sell. So the stock photography is a big place where you need to have good photography skills, but you don't necessarily need to know how to draw or master Photoshop to sell things.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And I recall I have bought some on Etsy.
Me too.
I love those because then it makes it look like you really did a lot to set up your photo shoot when in actuality you didn't.
Yeah, it's a great quick way to get professional photos. So yeah, I recommend that for Etsy sellers a lot. If you're having trouble with your own photos, there are so many places where you can just buy a beautifully curated photo and pop your item in and be good to go.
Yeah. Now, Jade, you've been on both sides of the fence, I would say, as far as selling on Etsy. You've sold physical products before, and now you're selling digital products. Can you compare what the pros and the cons of each are, just having done them both, if you think that's even that there is a comparison?
Well, I mean, for my lifestyle, digital was definitely the way to go for me. But I mean, you do need some computer skills to sell digitally. So if you make something that's just completely not in the digital realm, I think that selling physically is great. When you sell physically, you can have your products, eventually maybe end up in some stores. You can do wholesaling like that. With digital, you're kind of limited to just selling your product only online. But definitely for me, not having to package and ship things a lot has just freed up so much time to be able to create more. And when something sells, I don't have to do anything because Etsy automatically provides the download link to the customer. So you don't even need to email them the file. So just having that automation really helps save time if you are strapped for time trying to have a side business on top of your full-time job.
Okay, I like that. Now, what about the profit margins based on your experience? And I know this won't be the same for everyone because products are different. Have you found that there's a wider profit margin selling digital products versus selling physical products?
So it's tricky with digital items to calculate the profit margins because it's less about your supply cost versus your time, because when you sell a digital item, you can just keep on selling it, an unlimited number of times if you're able to do that. So I definitely find that the profits are great with digital items. but the individual sale price is usually lower. So if I were to
Right.
sell a print that I printed out and shipped to somebody, I could get more money for that individual print than I could for selling the digital file. But if I wanted to sell another print, I'd have to print it out again, whereas digitally you can just keep selling it. So I think that the individual sales are lower, but the opportunity is bigger to make more in the long run because you never run out of product.
Yeah. And then something else I was thinking with physical products, if you have one that's not moving or not really selling well because of maybe issues with space or supplies, with physical products, it's easy sometimes to make a determination about closing down one product line and maybe just getting rid of it altogether to make room for something else, or to use the raw materials or the supplies to make something else that sells better. With digital products, do you find the same thing? Like, are there some products that just don't really perform too well, and then do you remove them, or is it not worth the effort since they don't really take up physical space and it's just 20 cents to keep them up there for, every 4 months?
Yeah, I do have a couple products that sell much less than the other ones. And so far I've just left them in because to me they weren't kind of bad products. I wasn't sure why they weren't selling. They just weren't as impactful as my other ones, but they didn't make my shop look bad. So I just leave them in there. If I were to make something that I really wasn't happy with and didn't sell at all, I'd probably remove it just to keep my, my shop appearance high quality, because I want to make sure that everything I'm selling is, looks great and matches my shop's brand. So I think that'd be the only time I would remove something, because otherwise, usually they'll sell at least before they expire, and there's not really a reason to remove it if I don't need to.
Okay. And then I don't know if you're familiar with the whole concept of renewing a product just to keep the listings fresh and have them show up. Now with digital products, I know the way it works is as soon as someone buys something, Etsy relists it for you. So then it appears, like, I guess, a renewal of sorts. Do you find that you have to put in time to renew certain ones, like maybe packs that aren't selling as much? Do you take the time to renew them, or you just rely on just listing them, and as they sell they get renewed, so you don't spend too much time doing the whole renewal to keep fresh thing?
So I renew very little. I mainly rely on them selling and then automatically being renewed, which I guess is another benefit when you sell a digital item, is that you're not running out of products, so it just kind of renews and relists on its own. But like if I have a product that's holiday specific, like a Christmas item, a Christmas clip art pack that no one's really going to buy during the summer months, once it gets closer to Christmas, I might renew that item just to kind of bump it up again, since people might be ready to start buying. Yeah. So that's the only time that I really do the renewal process.
I just love this idea because it's so appealing, but the catch is you have to have a skill to be able to do this, and it's easy for one to think that, I can just jump into selling something, passively. But I think why it's working for you is because you do have a skill. You're very skilled at what you do. And so people recognize the quality and, the effort that goes into that. I was reading a book. I can't remember the title. I found it on Amazon about just, and the author was comparing different shops that sold digital items and the wide array of digital items that you can sell. And so I was just very intrigued by that. But the one thread that was common in all of them was the ones that were doing well, like you, were very skilled at what they were doing. So as tempting as it could sound for someone else to jump in and say, I just want to do digital products only, think about, what you're skilled at and whether you do have something of value and something worthwhile to sell in the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely do need a skill more than you might with some like a specific skill, more than you might with some physical products. But I do think that there are ways to be creative and kind of think about how, because everyone's skilled at something, just thinking about how your skill might apply. It may not apply, but I bet that there's a lot of, unique ways that people could find ways to sell items digitally that they didn't think they could. And I also think, a lot of the people who buy my artwork, it's because they don't have those illustration skills, but they do want to sell digitally. So I have people that purchase my clip art and they'll purchase a commercial license, and then they'll take my clip art and kind of just arrange it into things like wall art or planner stickers, and then they'll sell it in their own shop. So they might not have an artistic skill, but they can use my artwork and, just arrange it with very basic, either Photoshop or the free alternatives, very basic skills in those programs that I think anybody could learn. And then they can kind of use that as a way to be successful selling digitally. So I don't think that you have to be a great artist or any one specific thing, but you do definitely need to put in some time to learn the basics of computer software, which I think that you can do if you're passionate about it.
That's very encouraging, Jade. It really is. Now, are you able to sell your digital products on any other platform other than Etsy? And do you?
Yeah, I actually do. Along with Etsy, I sell on Creative Market. I don't know if you've heard
that place. Yes.
Yeah. So that website, that's a great place to get ideas for what you can sell digitally, because everything on Creative Market is a digital download.
Yes.
So they have a lot of fonts. They have for people who like to code. I don't know if any of your listeners like to code, but there's lots of like Photoshop actions that people sell. Of course, there's stock photography and clip art and blog templates, things like that. It's a really great place. So I sell there along with Etsy, and I'd say that about 30% of my sales come from Creative Market, where 70% of them come from Etsy. So it's definitely been worthwhile for me to sell there as well. They do take a larger cut. They take 30% of your sale price.
Ooh, ouch.
And their licenses, ouch. Their licenses are a bit broader. So I charge more for my artwork on Creative Market, and I still find that it sells there because the people, overall items just tend to cost more on Creative Market.
Oh, that's good. Well, that's good to know. I don't think we've mentioned Creative Market on the podcast in the past, but yes, I go there when I want to buy fonts, and that was how I discovered them. Was you can buy font packs and just add them to your computer and create from there.
Yeah, they're a great resource for Etsy sellers too, because they have things like fonts and stock product mock-ups and things like that you might be able to use for your own shop.
Yeah. Do you do any marketing whatsoever for your shop on Creative Market? Is it considered a shop or just an account on Creative Market?
I guess you have your own little area. Like I have my Paper Sphinx kind of storefront. So I guess it would be considered a shop, but it's definitely more about people jump between shop and shop on Creative Market. It's less about staying within an individual shop.
So do you do any kind of marketing to send traffic there, or you don't really have to? Does Creative Market drive customers to their site, and then you just hope that they find what you have?
So yeah, with my goal kind of being to run my shop in the most efficient way possible, I don't do too much outside marketing, especially on Creative Market. It just kind of grows organically. I know a lot of people will pin the pictures from Creative Market, and I get some traffic from Pinterest, just with people who have pinned it and then click it and go and buy. But overall, I think I focus on making my keywords good, my titles and tags good, and then people just kind of find the items on Creative Market. Okay.
So pretty much how you would do it on Etsy as well.
Yeah. With Etsy, I mainly focus on like optimizing it within Etsy. Like I put a lot of work into my SEO and my keywords and researching, trying to get my my items up to the first page of results.
Yeah.
The one marketing tool that I use a ton in Etsy is the promoted listings. I use
Oh,
those
you do.
a lot. Yeah, I know that a lot of people have trouble finding success with promoted listings, but for me, I get really great results there. So that's my main marketing avenue.
Now, how do you think, or why do you think you've been successful with promoted listings? Do you think it's a factor of the product that you're selling, or did you study how to do like, I want to call it digital advertising, which is kind of what promoted listings is?
Yeah. I studied it a lot. I think it's important to have a good product, or especially a good image that will draw people into your listing. And I also think that having your SEO optimized is really important, which sounds scary, but it's not too scary. It's really just making sure that the things that people are searching for are reflected in your listing, in your
Yes.
tags, in your titles, in your descriptions.
Mhm.
So that helps a lot, because that makes it targeted so that people who search for, watercolor bear clip art see my watercolor bear clip art pop
Yeah.
up. And I also researched the promoted listings a lot. I kind of Googled it before I started it, and I found a good resource. I think it was from Handmadeology, which I can provide you with the link to that. It was kind of a guide on how to have success with promoted listings, because a lot of times people just start it and they leave it with how Etsy recommends it.
Yeah.
And that's not always the best way for every shop to go, because it might make you end up spending more money for less results. So that article really helped me learn how to optimize my promoted listings, and I immediately saw a big jump in sales that way.
Oh, fantastic. Now, when you do promoted listings, you start to, they give you more information about how people are finding, what searches people used to land on your products. And so you get additional keywords that people typed in. Is part of tweaking your promoted listings using that information that they give?
Yeah, I do. I do take a look and see what people are mainly searching for, and I might tweak my titles to match that further. Or if they're searching for something weird and like that I didn't expect them to search for, and finding my item, I kind of research that and see if maybe there's an untapped area I wasn't looking at, and kind of adjust from there. So I do use the stats a lot, both in promoted listings and just in the regular, Etsy stats to tweak my listings.
Yeah. Now, how are you enjoying the new Etsy stats? What do you think?
I like it. I was a little challenging at first, because everything was in a new place, but I feel like it kind of provides more detailed information than it used to. Yeah, so I enjoy that.
Yeah, I think so too. In the beginning, I was kind of confused because
me too.
There's a lot of nesting, and you have to click and click and click. And so, but I figured to make it look clean, they had to nest it that way. But initially, I just thought, when is this going to end? But it makes sense when you drill down to see exactly, why everything is nested the way it is. And I do find it easier now to see, like, okay, where is my traffic coming from? Is it worth it to, promote on Pinterest if I'm not getting as much traffic from there, or what have you? That's just an example.
Definitely.
Pinterest is good.
Yeah, it is.
Now, when you first started the promoted listings, did you have, or did you start with a certain minimum spend a day just to see if it would work, and then as you started to see results, increase that? Or did you start with a higher budget and then, tweak it based on what you were seeing?
So I started with a small budget, and when I was following that the article on promoted listings, they recommended making a custom cost per click, like making your custom click price very low, like between 2 and 5 cents, which that might be a little too, that's kind of advanced stuff if people haven't started using it yet. But doing that lets you get a lot of clicks for just your small daily budget, which I think I had mine set at just $1. And even though sometimes having a low bid price makes your item not show up quite as high in the search results, I was still getting, enough clicks to reach my dollar, and it was converting into sales. So I still keep my cost per click very low, but I increased my daily budget just because I realized that I was getting a really good return on everything that I was, putting into it.
Wow. Okay. That article sounds really helpful. And I will link to the article once Jade sends it to me. I'll link to it in the show notes for this episode. So anyone who wants to dive into promoted listings can use that. And would you say it's good for a beginner or someone who has already been doing promoted listings? Is it better for someone who's just starting off or someone who's looking to optimize?
Well, I think definitely for beginners, but if you have been using it for a while and you haven't really been getting the results that you've been seeing, I think it's great for anybody to just kind of get a deeper understanding of what they're really about and how you can optimize it. Okay.
So Jade, let's talk about promotion. I know we touched on it just a little bit when we were talking about creative market, but do you do any special promotions to get the word out other than the Etsy promoted listings? And I guess in particular, say on social media, do you use social media a lot to promote your Etsy shop?
So I'd love to have the time to put a lot of my effort into social media, but I've really been trying to save time with this shop. So I think I probably use social media a lot less than some other people might, but I do use it. I have a Facebook page, which really doesn't have that many followers yet because I only got started on it recently. But I do post my new listings to Facebook and just little updates, sometimes things I'm working on. And I also post kind of work in progresses and sometimes even little video, sped up videos of me painting to Instagram.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's been really good. But I haven't put much energy into growing those, so they're kind of small. And I'd love to take some more time to grow those accounts. But I am finding that I don't really need to put too much time into social media for my shop to keep growing. So I haven't quite yet. But I have focused on trying to make my images look good for Pinterest, just so that when people do pin my art, that they want to share it, and then I get a lot of repins there. So that's helpful.
Okay. Yes. And I was going to say, if you said that you weren't doing any social media, I was going to say it doesn't look like you need to because people are finding you anyway and your shop is thriving. So, I mean, I'm sure it would help, but I mean, it's not like you need it to get the word out per se.
And I think that's good for, I guess, just people to know that I think it depends on what you're selling, but it's not always, the top priority to have to do social media. If you're not into it or if you don't have time, there are other ways to get your shop found within Etsy. And I think it's just really about optimizing your listings and making your images look like something people want to click on.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that because I was going to recap and say, especially when it comes to Etsy and being found in search engines, because search engines do pick up Etsy listings. It's all about what's more important, I think, than being on social media where you're trying to shout in a loud crowd is optimizing your keywords on Etsy, both for Etsy search and search, the major search engine searches and your pictures, because, people see and then they, they're drawn to it. So you want a picture or an image that will catch someone's eye, and if they're not looking and they're just typing and searching, you want to use keywords that people are going to look for as well. And so for someone who doesn't have the time to dedicate to social media, which takes up so much time, optimizing your shop and your pictures is I don't want to say the next best thing. I think it's the best thing. And then social media comes after.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. I put 90% of my effort into just making sure my listings are as good as they can be on Etsy, and to be found that way. And I think that that's definitely the most important thing you can do for your shop.
Yeah. Now, have you ever considered blogging or starting your own e-commerce website, or are you happy with the two platforms that you're on and how they're doing?
I've thought about it, but it's another thing where I'm not sure that the effort that I would spend there would really be worth the time that I put in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I didn't have a full-time job, I would definitely start a blog and maybe try just to kind of diversify my shop, try to have my own place where I was selling as well.
Yeah.
But I haven't found it to be super necessary at this point. So right now I'm happy selling on Etsy and on Creative Market.
Okay. That's great. Now, how much time would you say per week you spend doing all things Etsy? So responding to convos, uploading listings, and I know it varies from week to week.
Yeah.
And so just on average, and then, well, you don't do any shipping, which is the beauty of the model you have. So anything related to Etsy, about how much time per week do you say you spend on that?
Well, a good thing about my day job is that I'm in a similar industry, in the children's apparel industry. We do a similar sort of research as I would do for my Etsy shop, like market research. And I do a lot of, trend research to see what kind of things people are buying for their kids, for their homes. So I'm able to combine a lot of that with just doing it at work, because we're supposed to be on Pinterest at work and researching things, which is pretty fantastic.
Yes, that is.
So I feel like if I wasn't able to do that at work, I'd spend a few hours a week at home doing that, but I don't need to. So I think between convos, if I'm not creating a new piece of art that week, it'd only be probably a couple hours of just looking at my convos a week. But if I am creating new art, I'd say I probably would spend between 10 to 15 hours a week, maybe all in, just kind of creating and managing the shop.
Yeah, that's good.
It's not too much time. So
yeah, no, that's perfect. Now, do you find that sometimes in between creating for work and then creating for your Etsy shop, that you ever run into just creative blocks where you're not getting any new ideas and you're not getting any inspiration to create new designs? And if so, how do you pull yourself out of that?
Yeah, so I actually have quite a big list of packs that I'm intending to work on, because whenever I get an idea, I just save it. I use Evernote and I just, mark down any ideas I have. So I don't really have an issue with what I want to create. It's more just sometimes I just get burnt out and creatively, because I draw all day at my day job as well. And when that happens, I mean, I'll give myself some time off. Like, I don't have to keep creating new packs every week if I don't want to. So I'll take some time off. But if I'm having trouble deciding what to work on next, sometimes I'll just take a look at my list and pick the easiest, quickest thing and just get started on it without worrying too much about if it's, going to be a bestseller. I'll just create anything, even if I don't like it. And sometimes that'll jumpstart me out of the rut and just get me going again.
Yeah. Now, so Jade, you had an Etsy shop first and then you came back. What do you think, other than having a different product line, what else do you think you did differently the second time around that helped to ensure you would be successful?
This time around, I think I focused on my shop a lot more as a business and as an illustrator, thinking about what problems my art could solve for people or what uses they could get out of it, versus just making things that I like making art that I like, but that might not necessarily be something that people want to buy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't only just make things based on trend, but I do take a look at the market a lot, my market, and see just what's out there, what's selling. And then I take those ideas and I incorporate them my own way so that it works with my shop. And I think that focusing on just what people are actually buying this time around and kind of working with that in mind has helped sales a lot.
Okay. So I like that you're responding to what the market is asking for, basically.
Yes.
And I think as creatives, we all start off making the similar mistake, maybe not all, but most of us make the mistake of creating what we like and what we want and thinking everybody else likes and wants that. And then some of us learn the hard way that they don't.
Yep, that's definitely what I did with my first shop. And you don't have to only create things like I don't want people to create things that they hate, but I think there's a way to balance it out and find a way to do it in a way that you like, but that other people are also up for buying.
Yeah, I like that. Now, is there a lesson about selling on Etsy that you think you learned the hard way? And if there isn't, that's fine. But is there something that you wish you had known without having to have made a mistake first?
I think for me, it's just triple checking my files and my descriptions before I upload, because I try to optimize my time. So I copy my old listings and put the new listing information in there. And I have had a few times where I maybe forgot to change out a detail in the listing before I published it. Like maybe I have a pack that includes 10 art files, but I forgot to erase the information from a pack that include 20 art files. So then a customer buys it and they think they're getting 20 art files, but they're only getting 10. So I've had that a couple times where people have reached out to me and said, hey, I read your description and I didn't receive what was shown. So, I always make it right. I'll give them a refund and get them extra files or whatever they need. But I wish that I knew not to do that in the beginning, because then I wouldn't have had to go through and have some unhappy customers. But it was very rare, and now I triple check every time I make a new upload.
Yeah, that's important. And I like that you said that, because I do that sometimes when I'm doing listings. If I'm listing things that are really similar, I'll just I'll use one as a template to create another. And a couple of times I've forgotten to change something, so it's not fully accurate. And I don't think anyone has caught me yet, but I know I caught myself. So when you said that, I thought, oh yeah, I know I've done that before.
Yeah. And I think it's good. I mean, it's not bad to copy your listings and try to be more efficient that way. You just have to make sure that you're making your new listing completely accurate before you go ahead and hit publish.
Yes. Like, don't do it at 11 p.m. at night when you know you're already half asleep. That was my problem.
Yep. That's a good tip for sure.
Now, what's one thing about selling on Etsy that you really like? And what's one thing or a feature that you would like to see Etsy implement if it doesn't already exist?
Okay. So one thing that really saves me so much time on Etsy is the Etsy app and using the Convo snippets. I think that's what they're called, the snippets. Yeah, because I get a lot of similar questions, which I try to answer in my frequently asked questions, but not everybody digs that far down.
Yeah. So
I have about 10 or so Convo snippets that are able to answer probably about 50 to 70% of people's inquiries. And that just helps so much time, especially when you're at work and you're not really focusing on your Etsy shop. You can just take a quick second during your break and reply to your conversations faster. So I love that feature. Something that I wish Etsy would focus on more, and these are more related to, one's related to digital art and one's just general. I wish that they allowed item variations on digital items, because they released that for physical items.
Yeah.
But you can't have that for digital items, and it makes it so tricky. Like, I'd love to be able to sell my clip art pack and then have the commercial license just included as an option instead of people having to go and purchase it as a separate item.
Oh,
But they don't
yeah.
allow that yet, which is kind of odd. And then I also wish that they would have stronger coupon codes, because right now you can only apply the coupon codes to the entire shop, and it makes it hard if you want to, discount a certain section or not include your licenses in the coupons. So
Oh,
I think that
right.
they could do a lot of work there.
I like that. Yes, you're right. I never thought about the variations as far as selling digital products and how those could be used. I guess they didn't either. So that's a good suggestion.
Maybe it's trickier. I don't know if it's trickier for digital items or not, but it seems like
Yeah.
something they could do.
It sounds doable, but yes,
Yeah.
who knows? I'm not a programmer. Jade, what would you tell that person listening right now who has had an Etsy shop in the past, didn't find success on Etsy, is feeling kind of despondent about it, but still wants to try again?
I guess I would say don't give up, but when you start again, do your research. Like, I find that sometimes people jump on Etsy, with just their passion, and that's great. But I think that thinking about it as a business also helps you think more about ways to make it successful. So I'd say, do your market research, think about what you're actually good and passionate at and how that can help people and how that can solve somebody's problem, so that you're not just, again, thinking about things that you like, but things that are sellable. And I think that if you do that research before you dive back in, you'll be much more prepared your second time around to have a successful, profitable shop.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And thank you so much for sharing that. The technical part is easy. It's what are you going to offer that would make it that would make your second or third or fourth time, whatever, different. And so that's great advice. Now, is there something that you're doing now that you think is working or you feel is working really well for you?
I guess I feel like I've kind of covered it, not to harp on promoted listings, but that by far.
Harp away.
Yeah, like I calculated yesterday before we had our interview. I just wanted to see how successful they were for me, and I think I calculated that I got over 1,000% return on what I have put into promoted listings, and I was blown away by that. I had no idea. So I think people who have given up on promoted listings, just try again, try tweaking your method and seeing if that'll work, because it's really a big part of my sales.
Wow. That is amazing, Jade. So,
yeah, I don't know why it's working that well, but it's great that it is.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Go to convome.com and check out the Handmadeology article. I will link to it. And, give that a read if you've struggled with promoted listings in the past and you might want to try it again. I think it's worth a try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
Are there any tools or resources for selling on Etsy that you've found particularly helpful?
I have a couple.
Yay.
One, I know a lot of the people you interview have the same one, but it's so useful that I'm going to share it too. I use Marmalade.
How did I know you were going to say that?
Yep. Because Marmalade's all about optimizing your SEO and really getting your shop listings perfect. And I think that has helped me not have to do social media and not have to market outside of Etsy, because I'm focusing so much in Etsy. They have a free and a paid option. Mm-hmm. I started out free, but I quickly jumped on the paid plan just because it has such powerful tools in it. Mm-hmm. So definitely recommend that. The other thing I use a lot, I know that Etsy's partnered with QuickBooks for the money side of things, but I use GoDaddy Bookkeeping for managing my Etsy shop. And I love it because it integrates directly with Etsy and pulls all your sales and divides it up between your bills and, the cut that Etsy takes. So I use that just to stay on top of of things for taxes, which aren't fun for anybody. But I think it is something that some Etsy sellers, me included, in the beginning, try to forget about until it comes around. But it helps me be on top of it all year, which is good.
And price-wise, is it worth the investment for GoDaddy as compared to, say, QuickBooks that Etsy has integrated?
Yeah, I think it's either the same or cheaper.
Okay.
It's
Good.
yeah, it's like maybe $8 a month. I'm not sure, and you can get it for a year and it's less, but it hasn't cost too much, and it's saved me a lot because I don't yet have like a accountant. I just use GoDaddy bookkeeping and TurboTax, and it's been working great so far.
And does GoDaddy bookkeeping integrate with TurboTax? Are you able to upload information from one to the other?
I don't think it's quite as easy as it would be with the QuickBooks one, because I think that's all the same Intuit.
You're right. Yeah, QuickBooks is the same company. Yeah.
So you can export everything, but I don't think there's a direct integration. So I actually haven't tried QuickBooks. It's probably just as good, but I would just recommend Etsy sellers use something, whether it's an Excel file or just keeping track of your sales is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. You have to keep track of your sales. And I've always heard good things about GoDaddy bookkeeping. And if you're listening and you haven't picked what tool to use for your bookkeeping, please listen to episode 185. I had an interview with Sarah Kornack, and she's an accountant and she sells on Etsy. And she gave a very detailed breakdown of each of them. We talked about QuickBooks, the one that's integrated into Etsy, and then the freestanding one. I believe she also talked about GoDaddy bookkeeping, and there were a couple more. There were like 4 that she touched on, and she had used each one and explained what the pros and cons of each one were and how to set things up, say if one was missing some feature that was necessary. So that's a good episode to listen to if you're still struggling with accounting for your Etsy shop.
Great. I'll have to listen to that one too. I don't think I've seen that one yet.
Yeah, that was really good. I was amazed because she tried every single one with her Etsy shop and then just gave such a detailed breakdown. And, by the end of it, you're like, okay, this is what works for me. Because even from Etsy shop to Etsy shop, not everyone, works as well, depending on what you're doing and how you're set up. And everyone's business is different. So, it was good.
Great.
Now, Jade, if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can reach you?
You can send me a convo on Etsy. That's really easy. I also am available on Facebook under Paper Sphinx. And I have an email, but it's tricky. It's papersphinx@jadefrolics.com, because Jade Frolics is it's kind of my illustration name, which I kind of keep separate from my Paper Sphinx name.
Okay.
But any of those ways will be great to get in touch.
Okay. And I will put all these in the show notes for this episode, so you can reach out to Jade if you want to. Go check out her Etsy shop. It's Paper Sphinx. And I'm guessing Etsy Convo is probably the easiest. Especially if you have the app, then you don't miss a message.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from people.
Great. Jade, thank you so much for coming and sharing. I'm so glad to have had you, because you are doing something that's different from most other sellers that I talk to on the podcast. And I think this is going to help open people's minds to just other ways they can leverage their Etsy shop if they have some type of skill that can be converted into something digital and maybe create an additional line of income. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's really been fun.
You are welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast this week. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.